Well, here it goes. The idea of writing a book called Philosophical Semantics I had more than 30 years ago as I was writing a thesis on Wittgenstein in Germany. In this time, I was exasperated with Kripke's brilliant but to a great extent implausible views and thinking that Ernst Tugendhat's analysis of singular predicative statements was not only correct but able to be developed further. Years later, I had some ideas to improve them. I wrote papers regarding aspects of the problem, but in the end, the original project was almost forgotten. In fact, I think some ideas remain unconscious and in some way decide the path that one follows. Thus, in the last 4 years, I wrote a book which I published had almost 500 pages. Although the analysis of the singular statement forms the dorsal spine of the book, its scope is much wider. It begins with a methodological chapter showing why some kind of commonsensical intuitions should not be let down so easily, but normally seen as points of departure able to be extended by science. This is followed by a reconstructive examination of Wittgenstein's and Frege's semantic insights together with a criticism of Kripke and the new orthodoxy that followed his work. There is a chapter defending semantic verificationism, showing how lost were the positivists and post-positivist philosophers in their criticism to Wittgenstein only sketched verificationist views of cognitive meanings. After a renewed defense of an ontology of tropes that is incorporated in the book, a defense of a higher order view of existence, a defense of facts as truth makers, and even after an answer to Hume's problem of induction, the book ends with a full-blooded defense of the correspondence theory of truth that includes coherence as a mechanism to achieve correspondence and extends correspondence to formal science. Show how this can be done, can be made. Finally, the analysis of correspondence leads to the problem of perception and even to the problem of skepticism, which are dealt with. The book is an attempt to reintegrate philosophy, challenging the present mainstream philosophy and the negative sides of the synthetic and fragmented way philosophy is presently often made. If its ideas are correct, then much of the present philosophy of language is in some ways misleading as a research program. Of course, I can be wrong, but from my side I think that much of what I'm writing will be unavoidably rediscovered soon or later, if the philosophical community allows. Moreover, the things told in the book are not difficult to see when people are looking from the right perspective and in the right way, since it is based on very plausible though often forgotten views. Hence my job was to select, develop and associate these views in the right way, what in fact demanded to me a poor, limited mind, lazy, limited mind, some decades. Well, since I'm an outsider, living most of the time in northeast of Brazil, and NASP, and without any chance of being published by Oxford University Press or MIT Press. They refused even to evaluate what an unknown researcher coming from nowhere is writing. I feel myself forced to fight against the possibility that this book disappears without any trace, as a kind of death-born child. Well, I am thankful to Professors Wolfgang Spohn and Peter Stemmer for their positive endorsements. They spent some time reading the book, and I think they did it not because of my beautiful eyes, but because the Germans still have an idea of what wide-scope systematic philosophy should be. As I was finishing the book, I was afraid I was spinning. It is reassuring to know that if I am insane, at least I am in good company. A last remark is about the strategy of the book, the unconscious strategy. The first thing to be noted is that there are only a few ideas in the analytic philosophy that are prima facie plausible. Most of them, though sometimes very smart, creative, and even relevant, have other goals, seem to be more or less implausible, either have other goals or are implausible. Now, assuming that the few prima facie plausible ideas are indeed the true ones, we can do the following. First, defend and develop them as far as we can. Second, try to see how they can be related one another according to the consilience principle, how they fit together. They can be fitted together if the nature has some structure. Well, and indeed one can find these relations, what reinforces my assumption. This was the strategy unconsciously applied in the construction of the book. The result is a systematic book with a very broad philosophical scope, whose surprising plausibility is based on its internal coherence. Of course, it is a speculative enterprise, but it seems to me essentially true. And the book has been finished without too much care because of the limited time available, but I think that the insightful reader will see through its superficial faults.